Thank you all for joining us today to discuss MCNC's newest cybersecurity service, our Managed Endpoint Protection Service. I'm Ruthie Mabe. I manage the security services business here at MCNC. I know most of you that have joined and registered to join, so I appreciate and I'm grateful that you're all here today. Joining me today and running the show is really Chris Beal, who's the VP of Security Initiatives and CISO here at MCNC. We also invited a couple of folks from Crowdstrike to join us. So we have Tom Rollick, who's the Regional Director in the SLED space. His region is the US Southeast and South Central. And then we also have David Bill, a sales engineer from Crowdstrike. So thank you three for joining us today. So just quick housekeeping, this is being recorded. So if you want to share this with colleagues who are unable to attend live today, we will post it to our YouTube page soon. And then in addition, we do have a Q&A section and a chat. So at the end of the webinar, we'll open it up for questions. So feel free to pop those in as we go through the session here. So that is all I have, and I will turn it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Ruthie. Hi, everyone. Appreciate you attending today. Hopefully you can all see the slides on my screen. If you could just confirm that with a thumbs up or a high sign in the chat. Don't want to be rambling on with folks that can't see what I'm talking about. But thanks for coming today. So I want to start out by talking about the situation that a lot of the orgs in MCNC's community find themselves in, and hopefully this will resonate with you. It's something that makes sense. So when we're talking about cybersecurity and cyber threats, the situation that we all find ourselves in are that these threats are relentless. They're more sophisticated every day. The attackers don't stop. They're constantly evolving their techniques. And what that means is that every organization really has a lot to keep up with to try to stay protected against these cyber threats. The protections that are required in order to keep yourself safe and secure from a cyber perspective, they're complicated and they are expensive. And that expense is not just in the hard dollars that are required to purchase and implement a technology solution to stay protected. There also can be expensive in soft dollars for the people that are required to operate those protections on a daily basis and respond to the alerts that are coming in as these new threats evolve. So the net result of this is that many organizations in our community end up going really without the cyber protections that they truly need because of the complexity and the expense, both in hard dollars and soft dollars. Even when solutions do get implemented, oftentimes those people resources are not keeping up with the alerts that are coming from the tools. And so sometimes those tools just become blinking lights that aren't really providing their full value from a security standpoint. So MCNC's response to this situation, we have recently launched something we're calling Vital Cyber, which is our cybersecurity practice. And this is really a culmination of several things that we've been doing for the community for a while. But we're also adding in some new components as well, and that's what we want to spend some time talking about today. So the cybersecurity practice, Vital Cyber, is really made up of four main elements: tools and services that we've been providing for cybersecurity for a while, our cybersecurity consulting that we've been doing for the community for a number of years, community advocacy, bringing folks together to figure out what are the right solutions to solve some of these tough cyber challenges. And then the thing we want to talk about today, managed services. And the managed services piece are what are really designed to help address that blinking light issue that folks often find themselves in. So providing not just a tool, but providing a fully managed service to detect and respond to the alerts that are occurring. So the first of these managed services that we're launching as part of Vital Cyber is our Managed Endpoint Protection Service. And that's what we want to talk about today. So this is a service that has been built from the ground up to help the community solve the toughest cybersecurity challenges that we're dealing with. It is providing it as a managed service, so addressing that blinking light problem that we alluded to, and providing that managed service from a 24/7, 365 perspective to make sure that folks are protected. So the managed endpoint service really has two main focus areas. The first is providing advanced security protection for endpoints. And the second is making sure that our endpoints and devices are implementing proper cyber hygiene. So MCNC, to deliver this service, has chosen to partner with Crowdstrike. And Ruthie introduced Tom and David on the call earlier. So you probably were aware of that. But we're really excited about the partnership with Crowdstrike as part of our diligence in figuring out how we wanted to implement this service for the community. We evaluated a number of solutions and potential partners. And at the end of the day, Crowdstrike is the one that really is offering what we felt was the best protection capability, the best solution, and the best value for our community. So we're really excited about the partnership. So from Crowdstrike's perspective, if you're familiar with their technology solutions, in order for us to deliver the advanced security protection for endpoints, really two Crowdstrike modules that we're utilizing to do that, Crowdstrike's Prevent module and Insight module. And then for the cyber hygiene component, we are utilizing Crowdstrike's Spotlight and Discover modules. So at this point, I am going to hand it over to Tom from Crowdstrike to talk a bit about each of these four modules and what they do and the value that they bring. So Tom, I will hand it over to you.
Chris, thank you so much, and thanks also to the entire MCNC community for joining us today, either real time or maybe watching it from a recording perspective. So once again, Tom Rawlik, I've been with Crowdstrike for a little over 3.5 years, covering public sector customers, state, local government, education, and higher ed. Predominantly in the states of North Carolina and Virginia, and recently have a greater role over the Southeast and the South Central in that area. So I'm joined by my partner in crime, David Bell. David and I have been working side by side for a couple of years, not only together with all of our customers, but also with Chris and his MCNC team. I think Chris and I had our first conversation about this program almost 2 years ago exactly. So we put a lot of planning and timing and effort and thought around this process. So when David and I go in and speak with customers for the first time, there's a lot of things that are brought up, but there's 4 points that we hear the most often, and it's hard to find a customer out there that doesn't have at least one of these issues that they're dealing with today. One is legacy technology, and we'll talk about that. One is agent bloat. One is oversaturation of CPU utilization on their endpoints, and then another one is lack of resources. And so when we talk about this program that we put together with MCNC, we address all of those issues. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we go through these module deliverables and the other things that we're able to offer with this program. So the first thing that Chris mentions is our Prevent module, which is our way of, that is our labeling and marketing term for next-gen antivirus. So you hear next-gen AV a lot out there. What differentiates CrowdStrike's next-gen AV is that, our next-gen AV offers machine learning engines that offer signatureless malware protection against both known and unknown malware. That's very important to keep in mind. The fact that our next-gen AV does not rely on signatures frees MCNC from having to deploy updated virus definition file to all endpoints on a daily basis. And that's a process that I think everybody can appreciate. As we know, malware is not always being used these days to compromise an environment. In fact, our latest statistics show that malware is only used 38% of the time as a tactic to get into an environment. So just this time a year ago, it was about 50-50. Now it's only 38% of the time. So this is why our next-gen AV includes exploitation protection to harden systems against attempts to exploit vulnerable applications like Adobe Flash, Java, Microsoft Silverlight, et cetera. And also, we're really big on identifying IOAs, or what are known as indicators of attacks, which are very important for providing prevention beyond malware. So those are some high-level thoughts on our prevention, and we'll move to the next slide, Chris, and talk about our EDR posture. So here, what we call our EDR platform is called Falcon Insight. it doesn't matter what scenario you're in, prevention will never be 100% effective, right? Remember, virtually all organizations who get breached have two things in common. They had an AV and a firewall in place, right? There's what we call silent prevention compromises out there. A lot of times that has to do with credential theft, and it can be a variety of different reasons, human error, whatever the case may be. But prevention is going to get bypassed at some point in time, regardless of what your prevention mechanisms are. So this is why EDR and having an EDR platform is so important. With the Falcon EDR Insight, it's our endpoint detection response solution. It's really about visibility, and it's like a DVR for your endpoint. Endpoint detection and response allows our customers to see what's happening now, but also retrospectively. And we can do that at lightning speed, literally in 5 seconds. So for example, if you want to search for a hash and look around hundreds of thousands of endpoints over a period of time, our EDR platform will return the results within about 5 seconds. And that's the power of how we build our architecture with our threat graph and our cloud architecture. So another benefit to keep in mind with this module is the overall platform is that there's no hardware required. So since it's all in the cloud, you don't have to buy any infrastructure, set it up and spend additional money. MCNC and Crowdstrike provides all of that technology and infrastructure in the cloud for you. And also we should note here that the visibility that we provide is unparalleled. We're looking at more than 500 event types compared to about 20 to 30 event types with other types of legacy solutions in the industry. So there's not much from a visibility perspective that we or MCNC cannot find. And with all this, visibility that we can provide MCNC and the ability for them to actively and proactively threat hunt in your environment, it accelerates detection speeds and it drastically reduces the time to remediate as well, which is a big deal right now in the security space. So Chris, that's all I had on the EDR piece, and I'll move it over to Spotlight when you're ready. All right, so Spotlight. I think a lot of the customers will appreciate this. I know it's been a very popular offering that we have in our portfolio today. So Spotlight's today's vulnerability. Let's talk about vulnerability assessment for a second. Today's vulnerability assessment is stuck in the dark ages, the way that we see it, right? First off, scanning, whether it's agent-based or network-based, scanning is slow and burdensome. I think we can all agree on that. And organizations regularly spend massive cycles configuring and managing scans. And so as you know, it takes days or weeks to complete a scan of their environment, only to find that you're spending all this effort to collect data that once you get it, it's chronically out of date and can be unreliable, especially for an incident response purpose. So with Spotlight, MCNC is going to be able to offer a scanless process to deploy and manage. No new agents will be involved, just turn it on in the single agent that provides everything else, and it's cloud-based solution, and you start seeing results right away. And Spotlight sees it all, whether that endpoint is physical or virtual, on or off premise. You receive total visibility into vulnerabilities across your distributed enterprise day one with no overhead to deploy or maintain. And this has been a process that customers have really appreciated when we talk about vulnerability assessment. And David, I know you had a quick bit on this, maybe a new release feature that we talked about as far as ranking the vulnerabilities from an AI perspective. Do you want to add on to that real quick?
Yeah, awesome, and thank you very much, Tom, for that. So with the vulnerability piece from the Falcon Spotlight, we added a new feature called the expert rating. What this does is the following: we're scanless technology, so we're not scheduling scans. And why this is important: when you schedule a scan with some other vulnerability assessment tools, the scoring and the vulnerability is for a particular point in time. Then your IT staff, they're on their own to determine, the risks, which one do we attack first, and kind of block and tackle. What CrowdStrike's introduced is called the expert rating. So we're dynamic and transparent. What that means is the following: initial rating is provided, and they can change the severity based upon new data that occurs around a vulnerability. Why is that important? Well, it's positive and negative indicators, looking at the 5 trillion events per week that CrowdStrike has, to give your security operations team a clear view of the factors that led to it. So with partnering with MCNC, not only are you getting the complete visibility, real-time information on vulnerabilities, MCNC can help hunt and search for those vulnerabilities that may be exploiting your environment and focus your triage remediation on that. So a lot of technologies out there from a vulnerability piece, hey, here's a CVSS score. That's fantastic. It's one point in time. With MCNC and leveraging Falcon Spotlight with the expert AI model, you can now accurately simplify and streamline your vulnerability management process. So huge new feature out there. No one else has this. And once again, it's scanless. You don't have to keep running as you patch. The higher prioritization with remediation in your environment, the scannings, the scores will reduce. But once again, it's a great new feature, Tom, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to present that. But once again, partnering with MCNC, you'll get the best of both worlds. You get the managed service and also the ability to simplify the vulnerability management process, because that could be time consuming, but then we can focus in and streamline what's important to your organization. Is it really targeted? Let's compare it to what Crowdstrike's 5 trillion events per week has.
That's awesome. So the next module that we have to finish up the segment is Discover. And we like this one as well because a lot of our customers really want to understand, okay, I need some real-time visibility into the endpoint itself. And when they say real-time visibility, they're like applications, assets, accounts, everything, the hygiene that this is our endpoint IT hygiene module that is very valuable to the customers as well. So an example of Discover is application usage. We have an application usage dashboard which allows instant visibility into total unique applications, the version of applications in your environments, the vendors you use, et cetera. So really good data that you get real time with that, and you're able to deliver both to your network operations teams, your executives and things like that. Really good data there. We also can see, give you views into specific hosts, check to see outdated or unauthorized applications, and track software usage across your entire organization. And I mean, there's some good examples, especially in the, in a lot of cases, but for example, in K through 12 or, in higher ed, we see a lot of folks ask for things like Visio and then go to show that, when you're going to renew your Visio, contract, that nobody's using it. So it also can be a little bit of an ROI as well for your environment. Another thing that we like is asset inventory. It allows you to get a glance at what assets are being used in your network and identify which assets are not being managed. We can also provide breakdown charts and data to see, breakdown by workstation, operating system, and by server. And you can even create custom filters with all this stuff. So it's really, really good stuff. And then the last thing too is, account monitoring. One of the things when I see demonstrations of this particular module that I really like is the account monitoring dashboard. It allows you to see who has admin privileges, monitor password hygiene, and get a detailed look into the historical activity of the actual user itself. So really good stuff here from a hygiene perspective, Chris. And I think that when you look at the overall encompassing, being able to take care of the prevention, the detection and response piece, and the hygiene piece, it's a really great package for you guys to be able to leverage for your customer base. So that's all on that one.
All right, thank you, Tom. So to kind of sum this up, we talked about the advanced security protection features of the service, providing next generation malware protection, detecting and stopping malicious content and malicious behavior. So kind of to Tom's point about, it's not just malware that is being utilized today. In fact, more and more we're seeing attacks that are successful and compromises that are successful that are not utilizing malware. So having that behavior detection as well is extremely important. Real-time threat hunting, so the ability to see across the environment and proactively look for issues that are occurring, and then that real-time monitoring, response, and containment that's all provided as part of the security protection component of this service. And then in addition to that, the cyber hygiene component, so the ability to inventory software and firmware that are running on all of your endpoints, the privileged account monitoring to detect when accounts are being utilized in ways that might be troublesome or concerning from a security standpoint, the usage of applications, as Tom mentioned, and then as David talked about, the ability to detect vulnerabilities that exist on devices and prioritize those through the expert feature that David talked about. So really combining those two components. So not just protecting from known threats, but being able to proactively identify devices that might be vulnerable so that they can be remediated before they can be compromised. That's a really important component of this service that we're offering, and one that sometimes is not provided as part of endpoint security service. So we're really excited about that. So those are kind of the two major areas, summing up. And then the really key component of this, as we alluded to earlier, is the managed service aspect. So the security operations monitoring and response. So it's not just a tool that your resources have to log into a console and respond to alerts. MCNC, our security operations team, are that frontline monitoring and response capability. And MCNC's team is backed up by CrowdStrike's global team with a service that is called Overwatch. So Tom, I'm going to hand it back to you here and let you talk a little bit about what the Overwatch service is.
So yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. And this is just really vital to the overall package for a variety of different reasons, but we'll give you a high level description. So Overwatch is the Falcon platform's human detection engine. We operate as an extension of the MCNC team. We're hunting relentlessly to see and stop the most sophisticated threats. So, what we're looking for is the 1% of the 1% of the threats that blend in silently and lead to a breach if they remain undetected. Right? We are looking for and finding that needle in a haystack. Right? The Overwatch and the MCNC experts they're hunting on their customers' behalf 24/7. Remember, your adversaries, they don't sleep, and they're not restricted by time zones or geography, and neither should we be able to, we should be doing the same thing, right? We have to match our adversaries one by one when it comes to that. And when a sophisticated intrusion occurs, time's critical, and MCNC and Overwatch have your back there. Just to kind of give you significance of the Overwatch team, and this came out with our latest Overwatch threat report that came out a few months ago. In the 12 months from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, a few months ago, Overwatch directly identified more than 65,000 potential intrusions. And that what that means is that's approximately one potential intrusion every 8 minutes. Okay, so if you think about that for a second, that's what we're finding in an environment 24/7, 365 days a year globally. So this was a very important element when we were building this program with Chris, to make sure that while the customer base and the community out there are sleeping, enjoying time with their family, doing what they need to do, we're protecting your environment. And so it's a very important aspect, Chris. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Tom. So MCNC's managed endpoint protection service is combining all these components that we've talked about, working with CrowdStrike to give you a partnership that is really tailored to North Carolina's community anchor institution community, powered by MCNC's long history of working in this community, but also with CrowdStrike's global capability from a cybersecurity standpoint. So it is fully managed 24/7 by 365. The capacity is significant, as we talked about. It does give you that advanced, modern, best-in-class detection and protection capability. And it does, because it's a managed service, address those resource concerns. MCNC's team is going to triage everything that is being detected there and contact you when necessary, and work with you around remediation actions that are required. It is device agnostic, runs on Windows, workstation and server, Mac OS, and Linux as well, on virtual and physical devices. And we believe the partnership with CrowdStrike and the economies of scale we're being able to bring to this will provide this at a price point that really is unmatched in the marketplace. So we're really excited about it. So again, just kind of summing up the value that each organization is bringing to this partnership. MCNC through Vital Cyber is bringing our deep understanding of the needs of the community anchor institution community in North Carolina. We can ensure that when an issue is detected with any part of our community, that we are addressing it in all parts of the community through this service. and our long history at MCNC of service excellence in serving the community. That's really value that we're bringing to the partnership. And from Crowdstrike's perspective, it's a best-in-class technology and protection solution. The expertise around security intelligence to stay ahead of the latest cyber threats, the resources of the true global leader in the cybersecurity space, and strategic vision for what components are going to be required for security protection in the future. So all of that is what Crowdstrike is bringing. So again, we are just really excited about this. We believe that this is an area that is of significant concern in our community due to the threat of ransomware. Primarily, we know that's such a big threat for our community. And we believe this is the kind of solution that can really help both from a device security protection standpoint, but also for that device hygiene that we talked about and getting being able to get ahead of those threats. So we're really just really excited to bring this solution into the marketplace. I want to give you just one quick anecdote. We have a couple of folks that as soon as we announced the availability of the service that immediately reached out to us and said, can we start evaluating this? So we have a couple of evaluations that are in process right now. One of those evaluations, we had a server where we deployed the technology on, and really within about an hour, we were able to detect that that server was compromised. And it was compromised with a particular type of malware that is fileless. So there's no file that is able to be scanned and detected as this malware is present on the system. It was really detected through some other mechanisms and some of the advanced behavior mechanisms that are built into the solution. So immediately demonstrating security protection value, because that server was compromised and was being used to mine cryptocurrency. And that's the kind of thing that would have been extremely difficult to detect with a legacy endpoint security solution. So even just that one quick anecdote, we think is demonstrating how this solution can provide value to the community. So with that, I think we are I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and we're going to open it up to have plenty of time for questions and answers from folks. Looks like we have a question asking if Crowdstrike is available for Chromebooks as an extension, i.e. not Android Chromebooks with Google Play, and does it inventory Chromebooks? So David, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I was actually typing in there. I first selected David's name by accident, but then I selected my own name. So I would rather talk about it. So absolutely great question there, David. So yeah, we are looking at adding that functionality into the Falcon console for you to do the management inventory of Chromebooks. Right now, we do obviously manage like iOS devices, iPads and iPhones and everything. We can also do, if you needed to, Android devices such as the mobile piece. So we have a mobile piece that's available for you guys. But I just want to let you know that we are looking at the Chromebook host management in a future release of the Falcon console.
Thanks, David.
I just want to make sure, David, if that's okay. I'm sorry. I think it was
Diane.
Diane. I apologize, Diane. Sorry about that. I saw the D's in there. So Diane, is that okay? Or did you need more clarification on that before I get to the next question? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Diane. I think
Great.
the next one's David.
And the next one says, when you say everything, does this mean even events with like a 0.2 rating? Do you have a severity threshold before you look at an event?
No, and so this is a two-pronged approach, and this is kind of where the MCNC team comes really valuable, my working with them here. So having MCNC look at your environment all the time from managed service, you're getting their visibility for all events, all incidents. In addition to that, you have Overwatch for other detections, adversaries, or even hands-on keyboard. So we are looking at all events across the board to see if it's malicious or not. And the reason why you want to do that is just because something might have done a little uptick on, let's say, an incident, we use the word radar, 0.1. The adversaries are always looking to move around. So with MCNC and Overwatch, we are looking continuously at all the events because they could change their dynamic in nature. So yes, we'll look at all events regardless of the severity rating.
Thanks, David. The next question says, can you run a scan to check for compromises, or do you have to install the product and then do a scan? So I'm gonna take a crack at this, David. You correct me when I go astray.
No problem.
So the protection value and the visibility is all enabled by CrowdStrike's agent. All right, so you need to deploy the agent on a device that you want to protect and have visibility into. So those become managed devices from CrowdStrike's perspective. So you do have to deploy that software agent. Once that agent is there, there's no scanning that is occurring that is required for someone to go push a button and say, I want to scan this. That protection, real-time protection, and the visibility is happening continuously. And the agents in the security operations center are the ones that are interacting with the console and reviewing that continuously updated data, both from a standpoint of detecting some interesting behavior or a threat on the device, and then also detecting the presence of a potential vulnerability that might need to be addressed. How's that, David? Did I do okay?
Excellent, excellent, Chris. Couldn't have said it better. And I'll just add to it. We have a new feature coming out. It's called On Write. So as Chris said, there's no need to do the on-demand scans, which are very resource intensive on machines. A lot of the legacy products will run a scan. Next thing you know, the system's unusable. So CrowdStrike here, we're releasing a feature called Detect on Write. So when files are written to disk, we're now, obviously we're going to have that feature to enable. You can put it in your environment if you want to enhance your security posture. But what Chris said, absolutely. Another thing is too, once you put the Falcon sensor on the system, it doesn't require a reboot. That's really important to understand, is that there's no downtime. Even if you put on a domain controller file server, once the sensor's there, it checks into the cloud. With CrowdStrike and MCNC managing it, it's a seamless process. So going from one legacy to over to CrowdStrike, you get the best of both worlds. Number one, MITRE ATT&CK framework. Number one, managed security provider with MCNC. So you can leverage both of those with the peace of mind knowing, you know what, I need to put the sensor on. And we've come across situations where a legacy product's on there, the sensor comes on with Overwatch continually monitoring. We're able to pick up threats and adversaries that were actually on the box that predated the Falcon sensor. So just know, once it's on there, just because there's no scanning, we are continually actively monitoring, as Tom said earlier, IOAs and indicators of attack and other adversaries marking on your box. So once again, you're completely covered. The scans are not required, and that's what brings back the resource to your host systems.
Thanks, David. Next question is a two-parter here. Asks, do we need to install some kind of agent on our devices? The answer to that is yes. If you want them protected by the CrowdStrike solution, the Falcon Endpoint Agent does need to be deployed. And then the second part, what kind of impact does it have on the resources of an end user device and on our network traffic? So David, I'll let you speak a little bit more to the specifics of that, but I will tell you that as we talked about earlier, MCNC did an extensive evaluation of solutions in the marketplace, and CrowdStrike far and away was the agent that had the least amount of performance impact on an endpoint system. That was a big selling point for us in that, and some of these agents can be very heavy and resource intensive, and CrowdStrike is not that way at all. So David, I don't know if you want to.
Oh, great. That's a great question. Great segue. Thanks, Chris. So absolutely, we're running maybe 1 to 2% max CPU on your system. And once you're installing the Falcon sensor, as Chris stated earlier, the Mac, Windows, and Linux completely supported. The impact, everyone's like, well, how much from a host, how much network traffic? Because the WAN engineers, they always want to know, what are you sending outbound? From a Windows machine, you can look at maybe 2 to 4 megabytes of data per 24 hours. And that can vary in your environment. We've seen a lot less. Now, I will say Mac and Linux, we all know, are different operating system, different beasts, if we can use that word. So from a Linux perspective, there's sometimes up to maybe 10 megabits over 24 hours of data. What do we mean by data now? It's maybe a file, a hash, or some telemetry going out from that host to the CrowdStrike cloud. But at no time with the deployments we have with MCNC and just larger environments, have you seen an impact? And Mac is about the same. Over 24 hours, it's about 4 to 6 megabits of data over 24 hours. And normally it's on the lower end we've seen. And as Chris said, I've worked with this team a lot, and I just, Stephen Walton's on, if he's on here, hopefully he is. He's tested thoroughly for everyone to know the product technology. So great job for him, Chris, for MCNC. But I'll let you know, he's actually backed up the what you've commented on from the CPU and all the testing.
And I think I'll
Yeah,
add real
and-
quick on that, Chris, too, is that, to keep in mind for the folks out there that regardless of what services we turn on, it doesn't have an impact on the CPU, right? And regardless of the scale of your environment. So the sensor is not going to behave any differently, regardless of what functionality is being used, or you don't have to install additional agents to use other functionality. We have an agent, it's a single agent for Windows, Mac, Linux, servers, virtual servers. So that's really, the ease of use and the low resource utilization is a big deal for the customer. So
Absolutely. The next question is, can this run in tandem with other AV products? Short answer to that is yes. I think you will find, though, once you deploy this, that there will be very little need or want to have another agent running on there. But if you require that for compliance reasons, or even just for deployment, implementation reasons, the short answer is yes, absolutely can run in tandem.
And I'll add to that, Chris. Absolutely, what Chris said. So with the CrowdStrike, the Falcon sensor, simplicity of it is it's industry. It's number one industry where you can deploy the technology in what we call detect mode only. We will sit behind your current AV and alert you of what's going on. No preventative actions being taken place. It helps you either slow roll off your AV, and then also we're collecting the telemetry from your environment. So the answer to that is absolutely what Chris said, is we can definitely run tandem. I think it was Mike Brown, behind any existing AV in detect mode only to alert you of what's happening when you're ready to go to production. And is what the MCNC is doing with their customers today. We go to what we call phase 2, is let's put you in full prevent mode, uninstall legacy, and you're ready to go. So once again, we're there. And the one thing too, as we talk about all these great questions, looking from the host perspective, we have a patent on our technology. We run inside the kernel. We're the only one out there. And actually, if you Googled it, we can also send it afterwards as an action item here. Our product and technology is patented out there, number one industry, to run in a kernel mode to get all that contextual information that no other AV vendor can provide today for you. So even during the CPU cycles, there's no signatures to update. There's no DAT files to download. And that's what Tom was talking about, and Chris, is you're not going to get the resource or the constraints on your environment. You're actually bringing back the resources to your hosts and your end users.
Thanks, David.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, does it impact the speed of your network? We touched on that, or David touched on that already. Short answer should be no. And David provided the details to back that up. So hopefully that answers that question. And then there is another question that came in, is if you're running on a Hyper-V host, does each VM count as a device? Short answer to that is yes. It's every operating system instance that you want to be protected by the service would have its own agent and would need to be counted as such. Ruthie, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Are there others?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you pop into the Q&A section there? There's a little over a dozen questions in there as well.
Whole nother
Yeah, so,
bubble.
yep. So I'll go ahead and say there's a question. The first one there is, what are next steps for anyone that's interested in taking advantage of the service? So I'm going to go ahead and post in the chat the information, not only the link to our website where the security services page is listed, but also security services at mcnc.org is the email alias that you can email, and we can get you started there. And I'll also post my individual email address, which is rmabe@mcnc.org.
All right. So we've got a question here. Do any of the CrowdStrike modules integrate with Cisco SecureX? David or Tom, you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the Cisco stuff, obviously from an API perspective, we can do OAuth 2 API with them. Depending if you're sending it to them directly, if they can't parse our data, we can send it to a syslog and they can ingest it. The thing is, we'll have a lot of our information with our partners is set up that way. A lot of them are integrated naturally. But if not, we can do OAuth 2 as long as we set it up for you. It's all cloud-based, and if they can ingest it once again, either naturally or if they have a built-in parser, or we can set up to a syslog for you.
Thanks, David. Next question is, does being cloud-based pose any problems? I will take a swag at that and say that there should only be benefits to you in that type of solution. The protection that is delivered by the agent does not depend on any kind of network connectivity. You will get the protection regardless of if the device is able to talk to the cloud or not. In order to check in and provide visibility to the console, a network connection is required, but it does not require you to be on premise. So anywhere your device goes, if it has a network connection, it will be able to communicate, and we will be able to see it and respond accordingly. So there should be no issues associated with any kind of the cloud-based management aspect of this solution. The next question asks, is the solution FedRAMP certified? David, you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% FedRAMP certified. And that's a key point because right now, the way MCNC set up with their environment and where they're managing it is GovCloud. So everything you have today for everyone on their GovCloud managed. So yes, we are FedRAMP certified.
All right. Next question asks, can you explain what sets your solution apart from Carbon Black and Alien Vault? What would be my incentive to switch solutions?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I don't like to bash competition. To me, I use the sports analogy, put the best players in the field. Let's see how it works. But from an efficacy point, the resource on the endpoint, you're going to see that big difference there using Carbon Black. Also, Carbon Black still uses signatures to date. So once again, for a lot of their scanning and everything, and also Carbon Black requires a lot of reboot and maintenance. Once again, with the Falcon sensor, minimal maintenance. And I say minimal, maybe, if you have to reboot a server or something else, you're doing patching, but we require no reboots. The scalability with the cloud architecture is night and day difference between us. So like I said, I know, I think it was, I think the gentleman in here posted, definitely can help you with that. Now, not only is it just, to me, it's not just a solution, which is better, Crowdstrike, of, less resource intensive, no signatures required, no reboots, and a scalability. It's just who's behind that. You have MCNC and Crowdstrike behind it. So it's just not the solution. Absolutely, we will show you the value, but it's the MCNC team behind it also that's leveraging it. So hopefully I was able to provide that information there for you. I think it was a gentleman by the name of Derek on there. But yeah, it's just, you'll see the resources being utilized versus also, the support behind it is a big difference.
Okay. So one thing I do want to say about just generally, if you talk to any solution provider, vendor, you're going to hear the same kinds of things that you're hearing on this call today, right? Our solution's great. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. So, right, we don't expect you to necessarily believe us just because we're saying these things. What I will tell you again, here at MCNC, we did a very extensive evaluation of the marketplace. We did hands-on testing over a set of 80 some requirements and different criteria of 5 different vendors, different technology solutions. And so it was a very rigorous process over a number of months. And ultimately, we ended up selecting Crowdstrike because of how it performed from a feature function standpoint, a technology and performance standpoint, and then also the partnership aspect of working with the organization was really aligned to what we were trying to do. But we, again, I don't expect you to believe it from us just because we're saying it. We would encourage you to, as David said, put it to the test and make your own judgments about it. And we're more than happy to work with you on it if you're interested in doing that. Question asks, can you discuss threat intelligence sharing outside of the North Carolina environment? Are you sharing with MSISAC or others? And are you gathering threat intelligence from them as well? David, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are sharing. We actually have a special team that handles all of this information, how we're sharing it, contextual information, hey, here's the threat actors, here's the, the advisories we're seeing out there. So we'll send situational awarenesses. Obviously, the biggest one is ransomware. So our threat intel teams, that we have a fantastic team, is constantly doing that. Also, we're ingesting, certain feeds into the Crowdstrike telemetry to say, okay, we're bi-directionally sharing information. We have monthly and I think even quarterly threat intel briefings that are hosted by our threat intel team. So it's just not siloed, which I really love. We're actually sharing information with the general public and everyone out there, say, hey, here's what we're seeing. here's what we're doing. Here's a targeted attack. You know, hey, the new Conti ransomware going up against VMware, ESX. Yeah, absolutely, we protect it. We protect it from day one. Here's the analysis of it. So we are constantly sharing information. We believe in that. You know, there's a lot of other AV vendors that maybe just like, we're siloed. We're only going to keep what we know. But that was a great question. We're constantly expanding our portfolio on who we can share information from. And like I said, you can ingest information. We have a lot of partners out there that also, you know, from a network provider, maybe a firewall, IP, or an email or a web proxy, that we share threat intel with them also.
Yeah, I mean, and to add on to that, I mean, we're doing this. It's a great question, and we're updating daily. You know, because these adversaries are evolving so much quicker than they used to. They're changing their skin color, you know, from a tiger to a panda within seconds, but underneath the framework is still the same adversary, right? So they've got the same characteristics a lot of times, but they just look different. And so sharing that information with the general public and the ISECs of the world and saying, hey, it's made a slight change and you need to be aware of it, is something that, you know, I know that we're doing daily with the threat intelligence community.
And I will say from MCNC's perspective, again, a big part of our decision to partner with Crowdstrike was our belief in their threat intelligence capability and their ability to stay ahead of the threat actors, and as compared to some other solutions that we looked at, we felt like Crowdstrike was, you know, very well positioned in that space. So there's several questions here that were asked by the same person, so I'm going to kind of group those together and see if we can hit those. How does this differ from just Crowdstrike's managed service offering? I think from my perspective, it is Crowdstrike's offering plus. So you get the benefit of MCNC's knowledge and context of the North Carolina Community Anchor Institution community and our long history of working with that community. But you're not sacrificing anything that Crowdstrike would be providing. So you get kind of, we've said it a few times here, best of both worlds. And I see David and Tom nodding their heads. So hopefully that's a good answer there.
Yes, very good.
And then David also asked, is it MCNC engineers looking at orgs environments, or is it Crowdstrike's engineers? So again, it's both. From the Overwatch perspective, Crowdstrike is doing that threat hunting 24/7. If things are detected, that's being passed to MCNC's operations folks. In addition to that, MCNC's operations folks are doing their own monitoring and hunting as well. Do orgs manage what modules are used? So again, the service that we're talking about here utilizes the 4 modules that were covered from Crowdstrike. So there's no on or off for those. That's part of what is in the service. Crowdstrike does offer some additional modules that we didn't talk about today. If you are familiar with those modules and you're interested in having those modules, we have the ability to provide them. They're just not part of the standard package. So, but if that's the case, you can talk to us about it, and then we can go back to Tom and David and talk about how to put something together that gives you access to those additional modules. And then David also asks, do orgs get to manage Crowdstrike updates, or would MCNC do that? I'm assuming that means updates to the software, the Endpoint Agent. So the short answer to that is that you as a customer would dictate how that would happen, and the MCNC folks from an operations standpoint would implement the policies in the console that would correspond to how you wanted that to happen. We can take that offline because there's some nuance around that, but that's I think the short answer.
Yeah, and if I could real quick, Chris, if I can add to that, as far as updates, what Chris hit on, there's no signatures or DAT files every day. The updates are for the sensors, features, functionality, maybe a new OS support. They come out once, maybe twice a month. And as Chris said, you can determine as your organization when you want it. Do you want to be like maybe an N-1? CrowdStrike releases it. Did you want to get that update, maybe one version back? So as Chris said, you have flexibility to operation as high as you want those updates. But once again, it's just mainly features, functionality. It's not signature based or files coming down. So that also dovetails into the previous questions of the network bandwidth, how limited it is and what we're taking up.
Thanks, David. A related question there from Corey asks, what admin levels will the districts have to manage their devices in Crowdstrike dashboard, or is this all handled by MCNC and the districts only get notifications? So this is something that I think is a differentiator for what MCNC is doing. Sometimes managed service providers will not give you any access to any kind of console. They will just tell you that we are managing that, and we will let you know when there's something that you need to know about. MCNC by default provides you your own console that you have read-only access to, so you can see everything that the MCNC analysts are seeing. That's the default posture, and that is generally where most service providers will end the access level that you can get. If you have a desire to go beyond read-only access and want to jointly participate in the management, that is something that we can enable for you. It does require some additional conversations, so we understand what kind of impact that might have on our ability to deliver the service. So we just need to work through that. But absolutely, that's something that can be accommodated within the parameters of the service we're offering here. There's a question that asks, are there deployment functions in the agent that will help to remove other AV software? David, you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from removing, let's say, another solution, legacy, we have the ability, what we call real-time response. We have the ability to, which incorporate with MCNC, is deploy scripts to do an automation of the removal. There are some vendors out there, solutions that may lock their product down, which would require to do the management console. So we look at it as a one-to-one basis. We work with you to say, hey, it's this vendor. We have scripts that we can deploy from the Falcon console to help automate the removal of the old technology. Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. As a question asks, is there a minimum number of devices? Ruthie, you want to answer that?
So the technical answer to that is no. If you come to us and say that you have, a smaller environment, then we will work with you on that. Our base typically includes 200 endpoints, right? So that's the, sort of starting where we have that conversation. But again, if you are an organization that has less endpoints than that, that's just a conversation that we can have. So you let us know and we'll go from there.
All right. Lee asks, does this support legacy devices and operating systems that are outside the official support window, I guess, from the VOS vendor?
So yeah, I'll jump into that one. So obviously, if it's Windows 2003 or XP, we don't support that. Like Windows 2008, I think it's like R2 or Windows 7. It is supported with limited support on there. Obviously, we follow the best practice from Microsoft. And a key point is, let's say you have a Windows 2003 server just somehow on your environment, you accidentally deploy the Falcon sensor, and this is a key takeaway with our technology. It will not blue screen. It will not do a continuous reboot. It goes into what we call reduced functionality mode. So it's a safety net. A lot of other solutions out there, if you deploy their agents to an unsupported operating system, you get what we call the blue screen of death or continuous reboots. So yes, we do our best practice and best due diligence to support I think it's 2008 R2 and Windows 7 systems. Yes, we do.
Yeah, and I would say if you want to follow up, Lee, with specific operating systems that you're interested in, then we can confirm exactly what functionality is available for that operating system. Michael asks, what drives your detection, and how do you keep it up to date? I think we've talked about that. So I would say, Michael, if we haven't covered that in enough detail for you, drop us an email and we can get you more details on that. Allison asks, if we re-image our computers, can we reinstall the agent without additional costs? The answer to that is yes. You're really paying for the device that you're deploying it on. So we'll work with you to make sure that you're not getting overcharged if you're going through that process. David asks, how much of a deep dive do you do on detections? We have a requirement to know exactly how an event occurred. Would MCNC provide this level of detail? Short answer to that is yes. One of the big selling points for us in looking at CrowdStrike's EDR was the ability to know end to end what happened, what are the steps that were followed, and exactly how this occurred. So everything that you can see in the Crowdstrike console, which is very detailed, would be available to you, not just to MCNC. So that's the short answer on that. Doug asks, are you planning a hands-on session for us to attend, or do you have a recorded session? I'm assuming you mean like a demo in the console showing what you can click on. So I think there are a number of resources we could provide you from a pre-recorded standpoint that Crowdstrike has available, videos and things that show that. But the best way to do that really is to do a demo with us and evaluate it hands-on for yourself. But if there's some specific thing that you're looking for there, Doug, please follow up with us and we can get you details on that. Brian asks, what will local admins have the ability to see the application interface, or is it only monitored by MCNC? We talked about that. You will, by default, have your own console that's read-only, and if you need more than that, we can talk about it. David asks if an org already has Crowdstrike, how does the conversion work? So that one is a little more complicated and probably requires an offline conversation. So David, I would encourage you to reach out to us via email if you find yourself in that state. We can talk about what the best way to handle that looks like. Brian asks, can this cover Red Hat servers? Answer is yes. And David asks, would you also do remediation with RTR, or would the org need to go back to the client with RTR and remove a malicious file, for example? So David, you want to take that?
Sure, remediation. So yeah, if there's a system where we'll do two scenarios. One, we're just getting Falcon on the box, we can definitely do real-time response, connect them remotely, do remediation, kill a running process, do a memory dump, whatever's required there. If the Falcon sensor's on the box and you're seeing some activity, we partner with MCNC. They're very skilled in that. So the short answer is yes, we do complete remediation of the system using RTR or other tools within the Falcon console on your behalf there, David. And I think that might go back to maybe someone else that, but as we do the remediation, work with MCNC, that's the value. Not only are they going to help with the real-time response, they're going to say, this is why we're doing it, this is why it happened. So you're getting clarity and content into what's actually taking place. So that's a great question, David.
All right, and we've got a couple more in the chat here. Does the Spotlight module, without implementing the other modules, is that a supported option by MCNC? So short answer to that is no. Our default service that we have described here today provides all four of those modules that we covered, plus the management via MCNC and Overwatch. If you have a strong desire to do something specifically there, please reach out and talk to us, and we'll see if we can construct something that makes sense. But the default answer is no, but contact us offline and we'll see what we can do. What are the workflows between MCNC and the organization for responding to alerts and vulnerabilities that are reported to the customer? What does MCNC want/require of the customer when the customer receives such alerts? So that's something that we go through during the onboarding process, where we talk about what is the cadence, and some of that is, here's our default, but some of that is, how do you feel about the default? Would you like something to be different? And let's work out what that needs to be. So I would say that that's something that is generally handled in that default process there. And I think that is all that I see here. So I'll probably stop there, given that we've kind of gone over time. But you have our emails. Ruthie put that in the chat there, I think. And so if there is something specific that we didn't cover, or that we didn't cover in enough detail, please reach out. As I said earlier, our goal is to, we believe this service is, the term game changer gets thrown out a lot and is a cliche, but we believe that this has the potential to truly be that for this community that we serve in North Carolina. We're really excited about it, and our goal is to get it as deployed as far and wide as we can, because we know that folks need this kind of protection capability for their environments. So please do engage with us, reach out. we want to figure out how we can get this solution in place for you. So Ruthie, sorry, there is one that Andy asked here. Visibility into VMware ESX ransomware actors have started to detect that directly.
Yeah, I'll take that one, Chris. Absolutely, that's a great question. We're obviously it's always been out there, but this is where you get with the Overwatch team and MCNC and our threat intel. So we were first out there to start picking it up early October. It's one of our adversaries. You'll see what they're called. It's Wizard Spider. It's coming out there with a Conti ransomware, and specifically for virtual machines on VMware ESXi hypervisors. So absolutely, Linux ESXi ESX completely covered and complete visibility into that. So that's a strong question there, because ransomware is just not limited to Windows. So we are covering it across all spectrums of the Linux and the Windows side. So Andy, great question.
All right, Ruthie, I at this point think I will hand it back to you to wrap us up and close us out.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, for joining us. Thank you, Chris, Tom, and David. Excellent webinar, I would say. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we did record this. We will post it on our YouTube page in the coming days, and we'll send it out to everyone that registered. So you will get a link from us for that recording that you can share with anyone that was unable to attend live today. So again, thank you, everybody. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions and you want to go to next steps with us. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.